بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. This is Dr. Halima, and today's lecture is lecture number 13, and it is about practical number 3, and as I said in my two previous lectures that the number 11, 12 and 13 would be about practical lectures. Again, as I said, we will be talking about talking about the variety of translation of excerpts, and we will be selecting examples from contemporary poetry and examples from general orations. And we will have an example from a short story. You can see that most of, or well, not most, all of our examples are literary examples. Literary texts. And you know that what we mean by literary text, it means either poetry, drama, novel, short stories, rhetorical speeches, orations, poetry, and that's it. So today we will have examples on how to translate contemporary poetry. Contemporary poetry has its own features, has its own messages, has its own structure, has its own style, and so on and so forth. But again, whether it is Arabic contemporary poetry or English contemporary poetry, it is still poetry, and it has its own rhyming, its own versification, its own rhythm and stylistic features, and so on. Now, if we take this poem as an example and try to translate it into Arabic and see, whether you would be able to do it, or again, or to even identify which is the most appropriate one. Okay, look at this. Look at this one. When pain and sickness made me cry, who gazed upon my heavy eye and wept for fear that I should die, my mother. It's very nice, simple, and to be honest, this poem is written, or was written, for children, to make them love their mothers. So look how they encourage children there to love their mothers. But alhamdulillah, nahna al-jannatu tahta aqdam al-ummahat. It's a part of our culture to love our mothers and fathers. So how are we going to translate this little poem into Arabic? All right, look at this. A, B, C, D, or something else. Look at this. Would you go for A? عندما جعلني الألم والمرض أبكي من حذق بعين الثقيلة وبكى خوفا أن أموت أمي. عندما أبكي من ألم أو مرض من ينظر بعين الثقيلتين ويبكي خوفا من أن أموت أمي. C. ألم ومرض يبكيني عيناي من تسهر وترضيني وتبكي خوفا من موتي أمي. C. D. عندما يتملكني المرض وأبكي ألما تسهر على راحتي وتبكي خوفا من موتي أمي. أبكي للمرض وللألم من حدق في عين الورم من يبكيني خوف العدم أمي تبكي أمي أمي. You are native speakers I'm sure you can identify the most appropriate translation of the English one. You know? So these are about 5 versions of translation of the same example. So you can tell that the people translate differently, but doesn't mean that every translation is really good. As I said, there is good translation, ugly translation, and bad translation. So try to get to this level of being a good translator. Okay? This poem from Arabic into English, a verse. This is one line. How are we going to translate this into English? ليس العيب أن يكون الفتى فقيرا ولكن العيب أن يعيش الفتى ذليلا. I mean, it's easy to understand it in Arabic, but how are we going to convey successfully the meanings of this poem, the cultural, the social, the economic, the religious, the literary, the poetic, the stylistic features, all amalgamated in this one line? How are we going to do that? Now, if you are a good translator, then I'm sure you can do it. If you were an ugly translator or a bad translator, then it's a different story. Let's see. A, B, C or D? A. It is not shameful to be poor, but it is shameful to live in humiliation. No comment. To be poor, it is not a shame, but it is to live in humiliation. C. It is not a shame to be poor, but it is to live in degradation. D. It is not a shame to be poor, but it is to live in disgrace. I don't know how you feel about the English translation, but I'm sure there is one among them, among these options, good enough, you know, to be the translation or the equivalent or the, you know, the translation of the top one. So this is just an example. I'm sure there are some people who could really do a better translation. I'm sure, who could really make it. I mean, I could have made it better. I could have made one really better than, but I thought I would give you a type of normal translation of poetry, which is more or less in prose. This is a prose, not poetic in English, but it's in prose, let's say. But it's good. It's a good prose, you know. Now we move to general orations. We move to general orations. If you want to translate general orations from Arabic into English, or from English into Arabic, then you need to, again, you need to really understand the text very well. You need to try to pass the communicative purpose of it, and you need to make sure that your style is a style that that causes the same effect and the same emotional impact on the reader as the original text. Look at this. Bribery is a religious crime and a national betrayal. Help us fight against bribery. A, B, C. A. الرشوة هي دين الجريمة ووطن الخيانة فساعدنا على محاربة الرشوة. Does it sound Arabic? I don't know. B. الرشوة اسم تعاقب عليه وخيانة للوطن لنحاربها معا. C. أيها الناس الرشوة جريمة دينية وخيانة وطنية. كن عونا في محاربة الرشوة. You know, I leave it to you to decide which is the best one, which is the most appropriate translation of the English version on the top. Okay? These are general orations, by the way, general speeches. Somebody might stand up and give such oration or such oratical speeches. Another one in Arabic this time. أيها الناس الفساد كالوباء إذا سكتنا عنه انتشر وإذا حاربناه انحصر فلنكن معا في مكافحة الفساد. Somebody delivering a speech about al-fasad. How are you going to translate this, first few sentences? A. O people, if we remained silent about epidemic of corruption, it would spread, and if we fought against it, we would limit it. Let's be together in the fight against corruption. No comment. Oh people, corruption is like an epidemic which would spread if we were quiet about it. But if we fought it, it would shrink. So be a partner in the fight against corruption. Number C. O people, corruption is like an epidemic which spreads if we are silent about it, but it shrinks if we fight it. So let's unite in our fight against it. Which is the most appropriate, which is the good, and which is the ugly, and which is the bad, I leave it to you. Why? Because I have given you the criteria, and we have talked about the criteria that would help us identify the good from the ugly and the ugly from the bad. So if you know how to identify, it means you have learned from this course. If you can translate creatively, it means you have learned from this course. If you have developed this feel of appreciation of different translations, it means you have learned from this course. Really. If not, then I'm sorry to say that you haven't learned from this course, if you haven't achieved the things I've just said. So you need to really revise and reconsider and read. And when you have finished, for instance, a seminar, you say to yourself, okay, Ahmed, have I learned it properly? Can I apply what I have learned to real life problems? Can I translate this text now after I have listened to Dr. Halima and I have read his seminar? Always ask yourself a question, reflect on what you have studied, and this is part of the the learning process. It's an ongoing process of transforming information and experience into what? Into knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values. This is learning. Okay. Now, the last example is an excerpt from a short story, and translating a short story, as you know by now, you need to really translate it to translate or to make a crude draft first, and then you leave it aside for some time. Don't refer to it, and then start translating. Translation proper. In other words, rewrite and revise and check, and you need to really check the social and the linguistic and the psychological and the rhetorical aspects of the text when you are translating a short story. All right? Now let's see this one. عندما وصل باب دكان الحلاق وجده مفتوحا على غير عادته، فسرت في كيانه موجة من الاستغراب، لكن سرعان ما خيمت عليه الخيبة، إذ أنه لم يجد عند دخوله العتبة سوى صبي لم يتجاوز 2 أو 13 من عمره. This is a narrative. This is not a poem. It is not a letter. It is not a text in history. It is not a bank statement. It is not a legal document. It is a story. Now, you have to live in the environment. You have to live the atmosphere, the environment, the setting of a short story to be able to translate it into English. Now look at A, how he translated it. When he arrived at the barber shop, he found the door open as usual. He was surprised and very glad, but quickly a cloud of disappointment filled him, because he did not expect to find a young boy who was about 12 or 30 years of old working alone. This is A. B. When he reached the door of the barber shop, he found the door open unusually. This brought into him a wave of astonishment, but suddenly he was disappointed because he saw a boy of 12 or 13 years old inside as he entered the shop. C. When he reached the door of the barber's shop, he unusually found the door open. Initially, he was happily surprised, but his happiness quickly disappeared, and a wave of disappointment went through his veins because he only found a boy of around 12 or 13 years old as he stepped into the shop. To be able to identify the most appropriate one, you need to really analyze the text word by word, sentence by sentence, structure by structure, image by image, does it have an effect? The effect of A on you, is it the same effect as B or C? So you need to really ask yourself about this, you know. This is a practical A, and it is about a poem. Again, I would like you to translate into Arabic and make it and translate it into poetry, you know. So this is from English into Arabic, and then C, and practical B, the translate B from Arabic into English. before I really submit, before I say goodbye, I would like to stress the importance of daily work, continuous work. And I would like really to thank you very much and wish you all the best in this course, and inshallah you will be all right. Thank you very much, and assalamu alaikum.